Okay, now we're live and we're welcoming you from around the world and in the United States. This is Diana Wright, and it is a Diana Wright Show live. And our special guest inside the program this morning will be Dorothy Leeds. Hopefully she'll join us in a few moments. But in the meantime, we just want to welcome you to the program and ask you, did you love yourself today? Remember now, you cannot receive love if you don't have love for yourself. It's important. It's crucial. Everyone is talking about it, but we have declared April 30th our I Love Me Day. Do something special for yourself on that day. Take care of you. Enjoy your singleness if you're single. Enjoy your married life if you're married. And just praise God for who you are and who He made you. And just stop trying to be someone else. So what are the questions are you asking today? We'd love to know. Yes. And we'd like for you to spread the word about this show, the show of LOVE. And remember, this evening at the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to talk to men and men only, hear what's on their mind. Why is it that men has so many issues with women? Why is it that men feel the way they feel about women? Why is it that men think the things they think about women? And why is it that men are so oversexed? And are you tired of hearing those ads about Viagra and Cialis and lengthen this and shorten that? Woo! How much more can we take? So we're going to be joined this evening at the 8 o'clock hour by Dax Dunn. And we hope that all the men from around the world, no matter where you are on the planet, will join us. So here we go. We are going to join. Hello. Good morning. I know this must be Dorothy Leeds.
It is she indeed.
Yes. And how are you? Welcome to the program.
Thank you. I am fine. And how are you?
I am wonderful. And I hope you had a great day so far. And we're going to try to make it even better by asking you about questions.
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful topic.
Okay. All right. Okay. Just tell us a little bit about, to my viewing audience, who Dorothy Leeds is. I know who you are. I think you're wonderful. You're so helpful and kind and receptive and all those wonderful things. And you've written 2 great books that I have, and I will put one right up to my camera right now. This one is called The 7 Powers of Questions, Secrets to Successful Communication in Life and Work. A lot of us need that. And then there's also the one that I truly love, is Power Speak, Engage, Inspire, and Stimulate Your Audience. So I'm not going to give away too much in the book. I've, read them more than once. So I'd like for you to just tell us about Dorothy Leeds.
Well, I am a person who likes to do many things. I started out as a performer, and my father said I needed a steadier profession. So I went and got an MA in education, and I taught school for a year and a half and realized that I really still wanted to be an actress.
All right.
So I went back into the theater and got a role in a Broadway show and toured with that and did all kinds. I say I've done everything but be in the circus, but in terms of show business.
You did not make the circus, Dorothy?
No, that's my next career.
Okay.
I've done everything, I often say, because I've had so many careers that I've done everything but be in the circus.
Oh, my goodness. Well, okay, all right. So continue for me.
And well, I mean, it would take a long time to tell it all, but I went from being a high school teacher, I went back into the theater. I went into the theater, I should say, and then I had 2 kids, and it got too difficult touring and auditioning, and so I started a knitwear company, which I sold, and went on to advertising, which I didn't love, and then I started giving talks on how to get a better job, and it was... And some people from the American Management Associations heard me speak and asked me if I wanted to do some programs with them.
Wow.
Which I did, and I started building a speaking business and a sales training company. And that I did for many years, and that's how I wrote the books that you were so kindly mentioning earlier.
Okay, all right. So you mentioned something that I think is crucial. You said your dad wanted you to get something, a real profession. And I think a lot of parents do struggle with that when their children make their own choices. So how did you decide to please your dad, but then realize, okay, Dorothy, this is not really what I want to do. I want to please my dad, but I want to take care of me too.
Right. Well, fortunately, I had support. I did have, some problems with various choices that I've made. But overall, I would say people were pretty supportive. I mean, once my parents saw that I really, even though I did my best as a teacher and I tried really hard, and I think I was a good teacher, but they could see that it was a struggle for me. I mean, my stomach was churning every day that I woke up and went off to that job, so I knew it wasn't the right profession for me. But oddly enough, I am now back in show business, in addition to my speaking and sales training career. And I just finished a play called The Hot Water Club for middle and to high school students. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that all the things you do in your life have a place somehow. And there's a reason for them. And because my teaching degree is now standing me in good stead in trying to get bookings for my new play, The Hot Water Club.
Right.
And I never would have thought that my degree in, my master's degree in education was going to help me in the theater. But it is actually helping me in performing my play because it's for middle to high school students, and I did teach high school. So that's what I mean. Things are never wasted in our lives, especially if we're out there doing things and meeting people and reaching out to people. To me, it's just so amazing how things happen in this world. There's really not luck in a way, but there is. It depends on how you define luck. But it never ceases to amaze me at how everything kind of falls into place somehow, as long as you're not just sitting around waiting for things to happen. You have to be out there in some way.
Amen. All right. Well, one of the thrust of this program is for young people and about loving yourself and trying to be the best you can be as opposed to being someone else. And if you love yourself, then love seems to come to you from different avenues. And that's the reason I was so happy you said what you said about your dad, because a lot of young people, they feel, yes, they have to please their parents, but are they trying to suffocate themselves in pleasing mom and dad to do the profession that mom and dad think is the right thing as opposed to pursuing their passion? So I was so happy that you actually realize that you needed to satisfy and pursue your own dreams and your own passion. So that's the reason I asked that question. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's a very good question and very important. And indeed, it's a difficult question for many people because often people have small children or they have a parent to help support and they've got other responsibilities and they feel that they just have to take any job. I know that at one point in my searchings, my father actually said to me, you should take this job, you may not get another offer. And I looked at him, I said, what do you mean I will not get another offer? I said, of course I will. So I think that, but I do think that there are times in one's life where we do have to compromise more than other times. And that doesn't mean, people are working later and later. And I mean, I didn't really start blooming in various careers until I was like in my middle 30s or early 40s.
Okay.
So I mean, sometime, and for a while I was trying to, I needed to do things to earn money. So, and I have a small office here in New York, and I do have people working for me, and they are all in creative professions, and they have to work at something they do well at and perhaps like a little, but it's not what they love. And so I think that it's very easy for someone to say, well, do what you love and you'll be fine. And I do agree to some degree, but I think that it's not true all of the time.
Right.
Let's say you're a single mom and you need to support your child or children. You may have to put off your dreams and plans for 5 years, let's say, or 10 years. But that doesn't mean you can't go back to it and do it, because people are working longer and longer. I mean, nobody seems to retire anymore. You see people 70 and 80 working away.
Exactly. What's that word anyway? Retirement. Oh, no, I don't like that word.
Terrible word, right? No, I mean, one should never retire.
Amen. Amen to that,
you
Dorothy.
Have to be, in the job market, but I mean, volunteer, help other people, become a mentor, become a big brother or big sister, and because good things happen to people who reach out and do good deeds. That's how I got into my career, my speaking career, because I was giving free talks on how to get a better job.
Ah, okay. Now we know the secret.
Well, it's good to to reach out and to give back.
Give back. Give back is so important. I want to go to your book about the questions, because I think there's a lot of people who are just simply afraid to ask questions because they either think the question is stupid or whatever. And you have a chapter in your book here that says, questions put you in control. How so?
Yes, well, if you think about it, it's never the speaker who's in control, it's the asker. Because people feel they have to answer a question.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean some people might not resist questions, because a lot depends on how you ask the question. But questions are very powerful for that very reason. We are all brought up to feel we have to answer a question. I know that when I didn't answer a question, my mother would say, "Dorothy, don't you know it's rude not to answer a question?" And I heard that many times as I was growing up, and I've gotten into many troubles in my life because I answered questions I shouldn't have answered.
Okay.
We do feel we have to. That's the first power of questions, actually, is that people feel they have to answer a question. So that definitely gives the asker a lot of power, because people will answer your question. If you ask the questions in a non-threatening, caring way, so that they're not canned, stupid questions. I mean, I'm sometimes aghast at some of the questions I hear people asking on television.
Yes.
I mean, they've got this star or this major political figure on the air, and they ask them the dumbest questions. So, I mean, you want to ask questions that are not threatening, that will give you more information. I mean, just to give an example, I used to say to my husband, "Where are you going?" And he'd say, "Out." Right. That's the typical male example. And why is that? Because they feel a little threatened by the question. So now I say to my husband, "Oh, you look so nice in that tie, and the everything matches so well today. You must be planning a great day. Where are you heading?" And he tells me everything. So that's what I call romancing the question.
Okay, so we need to be romancing the question when we're asking, especially our spouse, because for my husband, my daughter and I used to say, "So where are you now?" He goes, "On the highway."
Right.
And we're like, "Okay, we didn't mean that. Where exactly are you?" And then my daughter would get truly mad with him for just being like that. But I guess he was trying to tell us that we need to be more specific or romance the question, just like you just said.
Exactly. And it's the same thing with kids. I mean, parents say to their kids, "How was school today?" The kids say, "Fine."
Yes.
But which doesn't really give you any information.
Exactly.
So, depending on the age of the child, like if you have a really little kid, you might say, "What was the silliest thing that happened to you in school today?" And you get the kid to talk, which is what you want to do when you ask that question. But one of the things that's really important when you ask a question is that you need to show that you're interested in the answer.
Okay.
People will give up answering your questions and not want to answer them. So that if you ask a question, you should listen carefully. Answer.
Yes, because I noticed when you mentioned about when you watch television and some of the questions that they ask, some of the reporters, like, watching myself, I go, okay, they're looking at their paper for the next question instead of listening because there might be a question in the answer that the person just gave.
Yes, yes, that's absolutely right.
Okay.
They're not listening. Thinking of what they're going to say. It's just like job interviewers.
Right.
Because I've been on so many job interviews, having had so many careers, I didn't start getting job offers till I stopped thinking about what I was going to say next and focused on what the person was telling me.
Okay. All right.
And then I got to know a little more about the person, what their concerns are, their needs, and that was when I started getting offers because I was paying attention.
Pay attention. My special guest inside the Diana Wright Show Live is none other than Dorothy Leeds. She has had many careers and reinvented herself, and now we know that her dad wanted her to be a teacher, which is a responsible career, you see, but that was not her passion. So she continued to do what her dad wanted, but then she also pursued her own passion. So that's one of the thrusts that I ask people: never ever give up on your dream, because you never know. You might just achieve your dream along the way, even though you listened to your parents and went to college and became a doctor and all those other things. All right, Dorothy, I'd like for you to, in chapter 10 of the book that is titled The 7 Powers of Questions, you have a chapter here, chapter 10, that says how questions can draw families together. And I read it and I thought, yeah, that's a good thing, because a lot of families seem to go haywire because nobody asks anything, nobody talks, nobody even communicates.
That's true, and I think in today's world with all these electronic wonders, I go out to dinner with my husband and I look around and there are these families where the mother and the father are looking at their iPhones, and the kids are playing games with their cell phones or whatever else they play games on, and nobody is communicating with anyone. It's very sad.
It is. It is very sad. It is very sad. So I want to ask you now, are there any bad questions to ask?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that there are stupid questions. There are questions that are not smart.
Okay.
Let's put it that way. I mean, for example, if you ask too abruptly, why are you doing that? Where did you go? If you ask a question in an abrupt manner, it's not a helpful question. And I think that when you ask a lot of closed-ended questions, people feel uncomfortable. They feel they're being interrogated. And closed-ended questions are not only yes or no questions, they're questions that get a short answer, like how old are you? Don't ask me that question, but anyhow, any question that gives you a short answer and over an extended period of time is not helpful. So I'm a big believer in using open-ended questions, which are questions that are how, what, and why type questions are much better than did you go out? What was your itinerary while you were out? Is a much better question. Did you like it? What specifically did you like about it? And you'll get a lot more information. I'm a big believer, since people will do what's in your question. Words you put in your question are very important. If I say, did you like it? It's yes or a no, and it doesn't require any thought.
Right.
But if I say, what did you like about it? That's good, but what specifically did you like about it is much better. Because people speak. If you start listening to people, we speak in generalities. We say, oh, it was good. Now, what does that mean? It's much better to say, if I were to say, what were the specific things you liked about it? It forces you to start thinking in specifics.
Right.
So you say, well, I liked the scene where they did this. I liked the music. I thought the characters were very well developed. It's so much better to word the questions with that. I love that word specifically, because people do not speak specifics. They speak in generalities. And if you start becoming more aware of it, you'll be surprised at how. And that's not always bad, because in terms of creative pursuits, not being so specific allows people to picture things.
Right.
So if I say to you, picture a summer night with lovely soft breezes, and you're by the ocean and you can smell the salt water. I mean, I'm being very specific. I'm painting a picture. But if I said it was a nice summer night, I mean, that really doesn't tell you anything.
And the first one took me exactly where you wanted me to go.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I was there.
Right, exactly. So the words in the question become really important, and people will do what's in your question. Now, I've learned a lot of this from my sales training company, because so many salespeople talk at you, don't ask enough questions.
Like when you go to buy a car, right? Like when you go to buy a car, they pressure you as opposed to trying to get to find out what you really want.
Exactly, and the truth is nobody buys a car. I would say not nobody, but most people don't buy a car because the salesperson wants to sell it. They buy a car because they need a car.
Right.
Therefore,
Exactly.
people buy it for their reasons. So people never really do anything for your reasons. I mean, I guess kids do, because kids try to please their parents. But overall, people do things for their reasons, not for yours. And the secret of being a persuasive person is to find out what those reasons are, and you don't do that by talking. You do that by asking and listening.
Okay, asking and listening. My special guest inside the Diana Wright Show live this morning, and we are so happy to have her. Her book, The 7 Powers of Questions. Why are we so afraid to ask questions? You know, women are afraid to ask their husbands certain things because they figure, oh, if I ask him that, he's going to find another girl. Or, you know, I'm not going to show my real side right now because then he'll find someone else. We need to ask questions. And here, the next one is Power Speaks, Engage, Inspire, and Stimulate Your Audience. Okay, we're going to stay in the vein of questions before we get to the speaking part, Dorothy. And I want to ask you, are there right questions to ask, say, for instance, your boss? Are there some questions that are off bounds, or are there right questions that you can or allowed to ask your boss? Like a raise.
So much of the work relationships are started when you first take a job. So one of the things you can do if any of your listeners are in the process of taking a new job is to find out as much as possible about what that person expects. Because expectations are a major factor of success in a marriage, at work, in friendships. So it really helps to find out what someone expects. And often these are, I call this sort of like the hidden job description. Nobody really says that we expect you to stay late when there's work to be done. They just assume that you'll do that. But it's very helpful to find out what are the expectations, and also what that person deems success in the job. What you need to do to meet the expectations of your boss, and what that person expects from you, and what you need to do to aspire to be the best that person expects and for that particular job. And those are good questions to ask at job interviews. What are the standards you require and expect from me? Right. And so I because employee-employer relationships are tough relationships in many ways, because you have a lot of power. The boss has a lot of power over the people who work for him or her. And in today's market, people are scared. They are afraid of losing their jobs. And I think that it's not a good idea to deal with this fear factor. You want people to want to come to work. You want people need to know where they stand. And I think you want to let your boss know that you want to be the best that you can be, and asking questions about how you can excel in this job and meet his or her expectations, I think are very valid questions to ask. And I would certainly ask them. You know, you are the most powerful when you're job seeking, when you're first offered the job.
Right.
And that's the time you want to negotiate for what you want. When you wait a few months, you're already in the job, and you've lost a good deal of your power, so to speak. So it's very helpful before you take a job to list the things that you feel are really important, and and find out whether this job will give those to you and contain those items that you consider important. Like you might be the kind of person that needs to take an hour for lunch and walk around, to go outside and walk a little bit and clear your head so you can come back and work more productively for the rest of the day. Or you're the kind of person that's interested in a job where you can work it from home, let's say 2 days a week. You need to know what's important to you and what you can negotiate for when you first get the job. That's when you're first offered the job, because that's when you have the most clout.
Okay. All right. I want to ask you to role play for a minute, because you mentioned the fear on the job and the economy and all that. And I'm thinking of a lot of people were kept on their jobs because, they had to take a pay cut, because in order to take a pay cut, then everyone else gets to keep their job. So at what point does an employee or go back to the employer and say, okay, now we're out of the woods? How would you then address that if you are the employee and you're saying, okay, I see things are going good now, I feel they're back to normal? How do you approach that boss? What question would Dorothy be asking that boss to say, can you give me back the salary that was taken at this point?
Right. Well, first of all, let's just go back to before when you're first asked to take a pay cut so everyone else can keep their jobs. I think you need to make it very clear with the boss that this is what's going to happen. As soon as things are back to such and such, you will give me back what I have. You need to ascertain that at the time where he or she is asking you to give up something for the good for everyone else.
Right.
And then it's a good idea once a month or so to remind that employer that this is the case, and things seem to be getting better. What's the date that things will revert back? You did promise that things you would. In other words, if you don't have it clearly written or an agreement, or at least I think it's better to have things written when you're working if you can. You have an agreement with your boss.
Right.
A lot depends on the kind of job it is. If it's a government job, you have less
leverage.
If it's a private sector job, you have more flexibility.
Right.
But I think that the secret is, when that happens, if you're asked to do this, that you get a commitment from the boss that as soon as this happens, it will revert back to you, and then you have to keep reminding him. Bosses, even good bosses, and I've had some good ones, don't want to, they're always trying to save money and look good to the board of directors or his or her boss. So, I had a boss once, really liked him, mostly a good boss, was pretty decent about, leaving me on my own and trusting me and giving me responsibility. But he fired the production manager. This was in an advertising company, and all of the account executives, people who went out and got new clients, had to do all the proposals and all the financial stuff and everything, which I hate to do. And I did it, though, because I wanted to keep my job, and he had fired this guy. He was going to keep us doing that because we were doing it fine, and he was saving a lot of money by not paying this is a small office.
Right.
By not paying
the production person.
And not paying a production manager. So finally, I did go in and talk to him, and I asked him, I said, would you like me to keep this job? And do you value what I do, and how do you value it? And he said all the right things. I said, well, then, if you want to keep me, you need to hire a production manager, because it's too stressful for me to do all these things that I don't like to do and don't do well. I have to work too hard to do them right.
Wow.
It means I'm not getting new clients, which you need. So he agreed with that, and he eventually, as soon as I had to pester him at least 3 3 times to remind him, and eventually he hired someone. But I feel I did it in the right way because I had asked him if he didn't like me and he didn't think I was productive, there's no reason why he would care if I left. So
or not,
you have to know that your boss appreciates you and values you, not that you appreciate yourself. He has to, or she has to, appreciate you.
Yeah, it's important what you just said, because what happened is that a lot of people, because the economy was so bad, I'm sure they didn't get it in writing. And I'm sure they didn't ask when they're going to get it back, because no one wanted to lose their jobs.
Right.
You see, so that's the reason I'm trying to figure out from you, what would be the best way to do this? You've given just a good example. They should go in and ask, how you view me. Do you value me? Do you think I do a good job? That kind of thing.
Right.
But it seems to me that a lot of people are actually afraid to go do that.
Well, that's how, unfortunately, in life, you often have to look out for yourself. I mean, it would be nice if we all had an agent working for us and getting us good jobs and doing all the stuff we don't want to do.
Right.
But most of us don't have that, so that we have to do it for ourselves. And a lot of people will let the fear keep them from doing it, and I often say to myself, what will happen if I don't do this? And I ask myself that question, and I said, well, you won't get the production manager, and you'll be doing this job that you hate for years.
Okay.
So I think that if you ask yourself that question, what will happen if I do it, and what will happen if I don't, it should spur you on to take action.
All right. For those of you who are out there, and I know there are lots of people out there who had to, sacrifice vacation and vacation time and money because they wanted to keep their jobs, Dorothy's giving some great advice. Go in and ask. Do you like the job I do? Am I good? Do you like me? Da-da-da-da-da. I need my money back now.
Well, the Bible says, ask and you shall
receive.
Ask and it shall be given to you.
Amen to that, Dorothy.
Right. So asking is a very good thing if you do it in the right way.
All right. So just do it just listen to Dorothy and you'll get back your money that you lost because you wanted to keep that job. Okay, Dorothy, I want to ask this because Mika, who is on Morning Joe on MSNBC, she spoke, and I think she wrote a book about this, that she was afraid to ask for equal pay when she started doing the show with Joe Scarborough. And even though Joe was getting way more money than she was, the point is that she actually had that fear that she actually asked Joe to go in and talk for her one time until she could get the muster to ask.
Well, I think in that case, I think that's probably a good thing. I mean, but that's because she's in the media and things are different for people in the media, I think. And also, the pay scales are different. I mean, if let's say it's Diane Sawyer took on a colleague who was not as experienced and didn't have the background, it's obvious that Diane Sawyer is going to make more money than an experienced co-host, let's say.
Exactly.
So I think that you can't, sometimes in the media, those things count. I mean, for example, Tom Hanks is starring in a show on Broadway right now. Now, if they bring in, when he leaves, another actor who doesn't have his stature, that actor's not going to get as much money as Tom Hanks. So I think in the media, things are a little different because they operate on a star standard. And also, I mean, look at all these corporate CEOs that are making millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. Now, someone could be doing almost a similar job but not making that much money because he or she is not the CEO of a major company. So, I mean, I'm a very big believer in equal pay and equal opportunity. As a matter of fact, later today, I'm going to march on a movement that I'm involved in.
You're going to march, Dorothy? You do that too?
Equal pay. Now, we have in New York State a governor who's a big believer in equal rights for women, and he's got a 10-point mandate that he's pushing, and one of those is equal pay.
Okay.
And I do march once a year on Albany for this. And one of the things under these 10 points is that people can talk about what they make.
Okay, great.
And now, but if you are doing the same job, but if you have different experience level, I think that often the pay scales do change. As I'm talking about people in show business, I mean, the bigger star you are, the more money you make.
Right.
Another actor who has as big a part but less experience doesn't get the same salary. So it's easy to say equal pay, but the job has to be equal too, and the background required for the job makes a difference. Also, I mean, like let's say someone went to had a stronger educational background, they might very well get a higher salary.
Right. You spoke about New York.
That's why people get PhDs, because they can get more money if they have a doctorate.
You spoke about New York there, and I know New York housewives are struggling to get back on because they're demanding more pay from Bravo, which is owned by NBC. So they are struggling with that, and we're told the last thing I saw was there might not be a New York housewife. So sometimes you got to be careful how you ask, because Mika said she was truly afraid to ask because she was fired from CBS and she had other, things going on. So she didn't want to jeopardize the position that she had by asking for a little more money. So, I guess you're so correct. It depends on the situation.
Yes,
all right.
She probably had an agent too and didn't have to ask for herself. Well, I mean, having been involved and still involved in show business, I know that stars get all kinds of, and anchors and people who are in prestigious positions get all kinds of perks.
Yes. Okay, I want to ask this one now before I go into the power speak. Why does it seem like men ask less questions and women seem to ask more questions? Is there a reason for that?
Well, it's funny. At one point, I didn't really think there were big differences between men and women, but I'm beginning to see that there are major differences, and there probably always will be. Men, as we all know, are brought up to it's being more assertive, being out there. It's more acceptable and it's more encouraged. It's changing. More and more women are out there, are doing work that was women were not involved in or considered suitable to engage in. I'll give you an example of a situation I had just yesterday. I ran a panel for some theatrical agents on Monday night, and Tuesday I wrote them each a thank you note. There were 7 panelists. 6 of them wrote me back thanking me for the thank you note.
All righty.
Now, these are highly paid, very respected theater agents. Now, I doubt that many men would do that.
Ah, okay.
I think women tend to be more overtly appreciative. They are more maybe because we're maternal and we want the best for our children, so that we encourage people more. We appreciate things more. I'm on the board of two associations, and one of the presidents of one of the associations is very appreciative of everything people do, and of course everyone wants to do things for her.
Yeah.
So, but men tend not to do that. I know I had a boss once. He would say, "Nice job," and I would say, "Thank you." And then as I got a little more comfortable, I say, "Well, what do you mean? What was nice about it?" And he wound up saying, "Well, you did this and this," and he would open up and say all the right things that would make me feel like I'd been appreciated and valued. But I had to ask for it. He didn't volunteer it.
Okay.
I think women find it hard to do that. I used to use a poem in the programs, the speeches I gave for women's groups. I used to say, ask for what you want, need, and wish for. Because it's not always going to be offered. So it helps to ask and speak up and let people know what you're looking for.
Okay, wonderful. All right, I want to go a little bit into networking now, because you are a great proponent of the importance of networking. How do we even play that? Because it seems to me like when, you try to network or you try to find a mentor of someone who is doing much better than you, they seem to not always have time or want to even speak with you, because who are you to try to contact me, kind of thing. So how do you get that networking thing going?
Well, I think that networking is a give and take. Now, I think that too many people look at networking as going someplace and giving someone a business card.
Yes, they do. That's what they do.
And that's not networking. Networking is getting involved, joining an organization, getting your name out there, doing good things for other people. Now, I got into my speaking career, my speaking and sales training career, because I was doing free workshops every Tuesday night for 3 years, helping people get better jobs.
Wow.
Now, that's networking, because I got known and people came down there to hear me, and it worked out really well for me. I'm in an organization right now it's called the League of Professional Theater Women, and I'm on the board, and I run the networking committee, and I do many things, and everybody knows me, and I call people, and they say, oh yeah, I'd like to be involved. So I think that people think of it as something that happens to them, but networking is a very active thing. You want to get out of your office, out of your home, meet people, do good deeds. Like, people join the Chamber of Commerce, or what's that organization? It's all over the world. Can't think of the name of it right now. But I mean, join a charitable organization and donate your time.
Right.
And that's what networking is. It's not just giving out your business card. And I think a lot of people don't realize that it requires effort, and people who want to get in show business, you go to festivals, you do showcases, you do readings, you do this, you try to get known and get there. But in the meantime, you should be doing good for other people.
Okay. My special guest, Dorothy Leeds, and she is the writer and the author of course, she's doing a one-woman play. I'm going to get to that in a minute, because Dorothy does too many things. I mean, I don't know how she manages, but she does. She manages it. Power Speak is her other book, and of course, the 7 Powers of Questions. Questions are so important. I listen to some people and they say, oh, that's a stupid question. Why are you asking that? Well, because I want an answer. How about that? So, networking. Who knew that networking is not just giving out your business card? You got to do something to network. All right. So I learned a lot from that just now. All right. I want to talk a little bit about the play that you do and reinventing yourself, because you seem to have done that with this play.
Well, I'm one of these people that doesn't like to be bored, and I like to be challenged, and I like to try new things. And I had been in show business as a younger person, and several years ago, I actually woke up with the title of this play, Good Lessons from Bad Women, in my head. It was the weirdest thing. It was there, right there in my brain. And I thought to myself, well, maybe it's time for me to do something back in show business. So I found a playwright, and I put together a play called Good Lessons from Bad Women. And I have performed it, I guess now, maybe over 100 times in performing arts centers, in community colleges, universities, libraries. And now I'm starting to get into schools with my play for children called not children, but middle to high school students, called the Hot Water Club. And so, but what I tend to ask myself this question, is this where I'd like to be in 10 years from now? And when the answer was no, I said, well, maybe it's time to move on.
Okay.
And so that's how I kept reinventing myself, and things just happened the way they did because I was out there. I was always involved in some organization, making contacts, trying to do good deeds when I could, and you know, and enjoying life, enjoying learning,
Right.
enjoying having curiosity. Harry Truman said, I gave a speech a couple of months ago, and my opening was, Harry Truman said, 2 things are important in every profession, is courage and imagination. And I really believe that. I think that both are very important for people to succeed and enjoy life and relish what they're doing and where they are. And on this panel I did Monday night, one of the women said, because one of the questions I had asked the panel is, how do artists get in? And one of the panelists said, you are all in already. You're involved. And she was right. The people that were there were in quotes, but didn't see themselves that way. And so it's important to see yourself as a valuable person and an interesting person. I mean, read books, read newspapers. Don't get all your news from television. It's not enough. It's not interesting enough. And expand your base of contacts and expand your knowledge base. And you know, people like to be around people who are energetic and interesting.
Amen to that.
So you want to be energetic and interesting.
Yes. And, you know, my book is coming out because you've read a little bit about the story, Deadly Negligence. I'll be sending you a copy of the book.
Good,
yes.
you.
The publisher got it yesterday. I'm going to pick up my copy over the weekend to give the release for it to be on Amazon and all those other good places. So I'm going to send you a copy because I'd love to hear your feedback on the book. I know when you read you know, what has happened to me in the past 6 years, you were touched by the whole thing, and I thank you for that, because you're truly a compassionate and very thoughtful and helpful person, and I must appreciate you for that publicly. So thank you for that. So I'll be sending you a copy.
Pleasure.
Yes, and I want to switch a little bit now to the Power Speak book, because I think it's important, because a lot of people sometimes don't imagine they're ever going to be on television or be interviewed, even if they're politicians, because some politicians get elected and they never get to the podium on TV. And you talk a lot about, you know, engaging your audience, inspiring them, stimulating them. And I just find that a lot of people just don't know how to do that. What's the first step to getting to engage and inspire your audience, maybe?
Well, this is what I talk about in my workshops. I say that I talk about what is the role of a speaker. And the role of the speaker is to take information and their message and make it interesting and meaningful to their listeners. And this is true if you're talking one-on-one, and it's true if you're talking to a group. Think about it. If not, just give people something to read. You're not going to make it interesting and meaningful. And what happens is most people speak to an audience based on what they want to tell them. People accept and buy into information and a message in terms of their feelings, not the speaker's feelings. So that's what a speaker has to think about. How can I make this interesting and meaningful to my listeners? And that's the key question, back to questions, that we need to ask to become inspirational to our audiences.
Here we go. It's questions again. Okay.
That's right.
It's always questions. It comes all the way back to questions every single time. And you have, in chapter 23 of this book, you have how to be your own coach.
Well, I mean, that you know, these days with all these electronic wonders and people taking pictures of themselves and flip cameras and all these other things, it's very easy to record yourself,
right,
and to see what you're doing and what you're not doing. So if you can be your own coach, especially if you set up a criteria. For example, if you want to be really interesting, try to use what I call the 3 magical phrases in your talk. which they are, for example, it's like and just imagine, because one of the roles of a good speaker is to paint pictures for the audience.
Okay.
And you paint pictures by using colorful language, by giving examples, by using anecdotes. There are so many ways that you can become an interesting, meaningful speaker. And you also need to be organized. And so I have, in the workshops that I give, I have 4 nevers, which are really important. One is never be boring. So many
but Dorothy, some people are just boring speakers.
But that's my main message. I mean, my goal is to help people be interesting speakers, so people will listen and pay attention.
Right. Okay. Never be boring.
Oh, but that's how you think about it. How many boring speakers have you heard in your life? Probably
plenty.
I know, that's the sad thing.
Right. So when you say to them, "Never be boring," I bet the whole panel will crack up for that.
But it's really true. And then another one is never say in conclusion.
Oh, okay. Lots of people do that, Dorothy. In conclusion.
What happens to an audience when they hear in conclusion?
They tune out.
Exactly. Well, do we want them to tune out? No, we don't. So we don't want to say in conclusion.
Right.
And then the other one is a really big one. Never read your visual aids. What do most people do when they give a talk? They put up their PowerPoint and they read it. And, I mean, I think that's absolutely insulting. It's patronizing to an audience. People can read. They don't need you to read to them. They need you to make the visuals more interesting. A good speaker doesn't have a lot, and visual and editorializes on the points.
That's a very good one, Dorothy, because a lot of people depend on that PowerPoint, and that's how they actually give their whole talk is from that PowerPoint.
That's true, and that's ridiculous because people read at about 500 words a minute, but they think at about 100. I mean, people speak at about 150. So by the time you finish the first sentence reading to them, they've read the whole thing anyhow. And then you're just repeating it, and I think that's really boring.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, put away those PowerPoints and start painting some pictures.
Well, you can actually use your PowerPoint, but you need to make it like my PowerPoints have loads of pictures and very few words on them.
Okay, so you use visuals as opposed to words.
Exactly.
Okay, wonderful. That's a fantastic tip because my goodness, I have been to so many places and people are going, okay, and they're reading the PowerPoint. I'm going, what's the point of this? What is the point of this? Because I can read it, hello, but I never thought of it that way, as something that you should never be doing. Wow, that's awesome.
Never read your visual aids.
Wow, so make your visual aids visual.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. This is one that is really big, Dorothy, and you deal with it right up front in the book. Break through the fear barrier.
Well, now, I often think that since my name's Dorothy, people expect me to click my magical red shoes together and get rid of their anxieties. I wish I could, but the point is, the best way to get over anxiety of public speaking is to do a lot of it. And so join Toastmasters, volunteer to give talks at work or at any charitable organizations you belong to. You get good at anything by practicing it.
Yes.
And the more you practice it, like the first time I did my play, the University of Wisconsin, I was almost fainted dead away from fear.
Wow.
But now when I do it, I can't wait to do it because I love to connect to the audience and people are laughing and because parts of it are quite funny. And I love it because I know it and I'm not nervous about it anymore. So the thing is to do it, to get out there and do public speaking. But I will share with you and your listeners a technique that really does work and that most people, even doctors, really don't know this or talk about it.
Right.
If you want to really get over this nervousness physiologically, you need to practice deep nasal diaphragmatic breathing. Because our nasal passages are connected to our limbic systems in our brains to control our emotions. So by breathing deeply through your nose, you can calm yourself.
Great
that is my only physiological way to deal with stage fright. But the other ways to deal with it are the more examples and little mini stories that you put in your talk, the less nervous you'll be, because people enjoy telling little stories and little anecdotes.
Right.
So by following my philosophy, by using magical phrases and painting pictures for people, you will become less nervous because it's a more pleasurable process making a speech. But I really, a lot of people use this term. A lot of people who are speech coaches use this term. We want to get the butterflies to fly in formation. But I don't like that expression. But,
okay.
I mean, in a way, it's true, though. I mean, you have to feel the fear and do it anyhow. That's what I tell people.
Right.
I mean, I don't have a magic wand, and I can't click my shoes together. If you want to be a good speaker, you have to do what everyone does. Do it a lot.
Okay, do it a lot.
You don't see the basketball players playing basketball one day a year. They play every day, and that's how they get good.
Exactly. And you have something here in chapter 6 that talks about too much information. When I first saw that label, I was wondering, okay, what's in this chapter? Too much information. What does Dorothy mean by too much information?
Well, that's really interesting because that's the major speaking fault, too much information. Mm-hmm. And there are various reasons why people do it. One is because they think people will think they're smart if they have a lot of information. Number two, it's easy to gather information. The difficult part is to make it interesting. Mm-hmm. So I mean, everyone knows that too much information isn't good, but people still persist in doing it. So I think that someone has to be ruthless and edit and get rid of all the extraneous things and focus on making an interesting talk that has a clear purpose, that's well organized, and has lots of right brain breaks, which are using the 3 magical phrases, and that's what makes it interesting.
Wonderful.
And so you have to, that's something every speaker has to do on his or her own. Get rid of so much information.
Okay. Are there questions that we should or should not ask our friends, Dorothy?
Well, I think you don't want to embarrass people.
Right.
Or be rude or, I mean, I think that when you ask questions, when you have a definite interest in your friends and what they're doing and what's going on in their lives and what they expect to get out of a friendship, and I think the more we talk to people, the better it is in terms of building a relationship. So I think asking caring, concerned, thought-provoking questions, because I think, oddly enough, a lot of people really do like to talk about things and issues. Mm-hmm. So I think a good friendship should be a give and take of questions and answers.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to give you a chance now because, we talked for an hour and it just went by. It's woo, 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 so I hope you can come back another time, but I'm going to ask you, what's your final words or tips that you'd like to give about questions and about Power Speak?
Well, I think that as far as questions go, just remember, every time you open your mouth to speak, you have 2 options. Mm-hmm. One is to make a statement, the other is to ask a question. And most often the question is more valuable than the statement. Mm-hmm. So that's, that's one thing that I feel everyone should think about. And in terms of public speaking, I guess just remember my main motto, which is never be boring. Never be boring.
That's a good one. Never be boring. I thank you so much for joining us, and you have a great day at the march that you're going to do. And don't overexert yourself because it's going to be nice weather in New York, I'm told.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Quite warm, up in the high 70s.
Right. So don't overexert and make sure you're drinking water and doing your breathing like you just advised.
All those good things.
Okay, Dorothy, thank you so much. I'm going to be sending you a copy of my book as quickly as I get it in my hand. And I hope that you can come back and join us another time when you have time, because I know your schedule is very tight, and I so thank you for accommodating us this morning.
My pleasure.
All right. Thank you so much, and have a blessed and a great day. Take care. All right. That was Dorothy Leeds, my special guest from New York City. Of course, you know, she is fantastic. She has reinvented herself. She has given advice to young people this morning. She has given advice to older people. She has given advice to medium people, everyone. Just take the advice and use it. And if you can, go and get a copy of Power Speak. It's really, really a good book. It engages, inspire, and stimulate your audience. It really actually tells you how to do that. You heard her. She gave you, I mean, of course, you know, she wrote this book before there was the iPhone and all those kind of things. So she gave you those examples now. So you can actually teach yourself how to be a good speaker, how to allow the camera to love you. And I hope the next time she joins us, she'll be joining us by Skype. And the next book, of course, her first book is The 7 Powers of Questions. And it's very colorful, as you can see. And, you know, it's a good book to read. And Power Speak, fantastic books. Go out and read them. You know, one of the things that a lot of us have problems reading books. You need to read to get information, to expand your mind. And it actually helps with your memory too. So go out and read Power Speak and the 7 Powers of Questions. Are you afraid to ask your spouse a question? Especially husbands. Wives are normally afraid to ask questions because, especially if it concerns financial things, when you ask your spouse about money, why do they get so annoyed? That's one of the questions I'm going to ask Dax this evening. Why is it that men get so annoyed when you talk about finances? Is it that they feel that you're emasculating them, or you shouldn't ask them, or what is it? So we hope we're going to make it exciting for you. And we hope that next time Dorothy comes, she'll be on Skype so you can actually ask her your own questions and not just what I have. But, you know, when I have these guests on, I give you notice. So if you want me to ask questions, just, you know, do so on my website. You know, come up with your questions and I will ask the question that you want to be asked. So don't be afraid to ask any questions. And if your boss is the person that you need to ask that question, just muster up your courage and do what Dorothy said. Dorothy said to go in and say, do you like my work? Do you like me? Am I doing a good job? Well, you promised so-and-so that you would give me back my X% or whatever it is. Is it possible to do that now? Don't be scared. Don't be afraid. Because that question can actually give you the answer that you're seeking. You never know. I like to ask questions, you see. So, sometimes I ask the wrong questions and I get in trouble. But I do like to ask questions. And I think I would love to ask you to want to ask questions yourselves. So, are you loving yourself today? Are you opening up your boxes of blessings and finding the blessing that you want out of it? Don't be a boring speaker. That's what Dorothy said. You just cannot be a boring speaker. Advice, great advice from Dorothy Leeds. Wow. And of course, if you are anywhere where her one-woman play is, you better go watch it. I'm asking her, but when she comes to Florida, she needs to let me know so I can be there to support her and watch. And if you're aspiring to be a speaker, go out and speak for free. It's a good thing. So, there you go. This day has passed very quickly. And of course, tomorrow is Wow Big Friday. Lots of Wow Big news this week. Because I think the Republicans are hoping that each and every one of us become pupils of amnesia. Are they forgetting that when President Bush was in power, I'm talking about the AP story now, because, the media, I like to have my freedom to say what I want to say on here and be free as a media person, as a trained media person, as a trained journalist, as a talk show host for many years. I want to be able to feel free to say what I want to say about the government without, backlash. But Republicans, my friends, Remember the days. Remember Bill Maher, who's not a journalist, a comedian who got fired because he was against the war? Remember the anchor person who got fired because he dared to speak up against President Bush and the war? What are these Republicans trying to do? I think they're going to hang themselves eventually because they are so empowered with the destruction of President Barack Obama that they're so absorbed. Let's get him. And I keep saying, it's the American people, stupid. Are they seeing that the economy is slowly getting better? Are they seeing that the deficit is going down? That's why Paul Ryan can no longer speak. What are the Republicans really after? Is it so obvious? It is obvious that they're trying to get Hillary Clinton before she even gets into the race for 2016 by pursuing and going down into Benghazi. Is there anything about Benghazi that we don't know yet? Is there any secret for us to find out? I don't think so. And for the IRS, the president now, yes, the head of the IRS has resigned. And I'm sure the people, we're told, the people who did wrong are going to be fired. Are we expecting that the president is going to stay in the White House and run every single agency that falls on the government? Or are his people falling down along the way? Some of them need to be fired, maybe. Because they're the ones who are supposed to make sure everything is being run properly, and they report to him. Leaders don't have to go do the job of their employees. I don't think so. And please, Republicans, remember, when one diggeth a grave, one should dig two graves, because you might then fall into that grave first. And media people out there, you truly don't need to know everything. If it is, as the Attorney General said, going to hurt the American people, for you to leak a story about security, I don't think you need to have that information. I respect the American media for being so relentless, but we don't always need to know everything. Some things need to be secret. Some things need to be secret. That's why it's a secret. What do we want? The president to come out and tell us what's going on, even, just when they were doing the whole bin Laden thing? Should they have come out and tell us what they were doing? When he went to the press club dinner at the White House, was he supposed to tell everybody what they were doing? No, absolutely not. There has to be some things for security reasons that the press does not need to know. I clearly remember years and years ago when the architect of the Twin Towers was on television. He was on a morning show, and he said the only thing that could destroy this tower is a plane going through it. Did he think that no one was listening around the world? Be careful what you say. The people who are bad people are watching TV also. Don't you see when they captured bin Laden and the things they took? What was he doing? He was with his remote control monitoring the satellite. So people don't, too much information, as Dorothy just said, too much information. Sometimes we just don't need to know everything. And thanks to Attorney General Holder for whipping Mr. Issa and telling him that what he was doing. I will get into that story in detail tomorrow on Wow Friday, because I thank the Attorney General for just slamming him down and telling him what he was doing was just so wrong. I think Republicans are so filled with the hate meter that is at 150% right now that they just don't know what to do. Everything they're calling a scandal, everything is a scandal. So was it a scandal when people lost their jobs because President Bush was going to war, and a lot of people think it was a dumb, stupid war, and they spoke about it as media people and they got canned? Are the Republicans really thinking that we all have amnesia and we're dumb, stupid people? No, we're not. Our memories are raging. And if we don't remember, the media itself will remind us. So please, Republicans, get rid of the hate, the envy and the jealousy. Forget the fact that he won a second term and you all spent 4 years trying to make him not win. Move on. It's the American people, stupid. President Obama, his life is made in the shade already. Please, let's pursue the job and the work that we were elected to do for the American people. So senators, Congress people, and all the people in the government agencies, just do the job that you're there to do and stop trying to make other people look bad. And my goodness, I wonder what's happening to immigration, gun control. And we see the deficit going down, but no one is talking about it because Obama did it or Obama had something to do with it. My gosh. Are we going to become a nation of pure hate? I don't want to be part of that. So I am asking each and every one of you to begin by loving yourselves, because if you love yourselves, especially Mitch McConnell, Speaker Boehner, Eric Cantor, Paul Ryan, Marco Rubio, Rand Paul, look in the mirror, please. Someone out there who is hearing my voice, call them, you know them. Ask them to look in the mirror and think of a word with 4 letters. Put it between the letter I, or shall I say yes? Just put it between I and me and see what it comes out to be. I love me. And Senator Rand Paul, if you love yourself, you will stop the hate. Senator Mitch McConnell, if you love yourself, sir, which I don't think you do, you will stop the hate. Speaker Boehner, are you loving yourself? Please, 3 little words, I love me. Take the love and put it between the I and the me and you get I love me. It's so easy. Because once you love yourself, you can't hate anyone else. We should love all people. We should be allowed to be free. And we love to talk about the Constitution and all those kind of things. But aren't we just trying to make other people's lives miserable? Indeed, we are. And I think one of the things we are entitled to is a peaceful domicile. My goodness, no matter the reason why the president's hair is so white, he must go to bed every night wondering, okay, what's next up the Republican sleeve to block me? So, Mr. President, you need to come out in front and be the leader that you're supposed to be. But Republicans, you need to stop being the blockers that you are. Stop being the haters that you are. Lower the hate meter and increase the I love me meter. April 30th is when we celebrate it on this show. You might want to join me in doing so. So, October 5, let's talk about something more pleasant. October 5 is the day that we give you a chance to save a life through Save a Life Jamaica Foundation. Not just because it says Jamaica, because we're not just dealing with Jamaica, we are dealing with the world. As Dorothy said earlier, we should do good deeds, do good things. Get out there, do something, make some contribution. Get out of your little hole that you're in, being so depressed and downtrodden. And come in and celebrate life. It's never too late for a shower of rain. And as the quote says, don't be sitting there worrying about the storm that you're in and when the storm is going to end. Go out there and learn to dance in the rain. Thanks again for joining me from around the world and in the United States. This is Diana Wright, and we see you at the 8 o'clock hour. Interdependency. Men Speak. Dax Dunn will be my special guest, and I invite each and every one of you as male as men, please give us a call, because we're going to touch on some serious topics that no one wants to talk about. Have a great day. Have a blessed day. And keep saying, I love me. Because come April 30th, 2014, I truly will love me. Adios, ciao, and au revoir.